Well, hello, that's me again. Today is March 25, 2025. It is Tuesday, and let me start with something which everybody talks about this morning, and it's pretty much noon, afternoon in on the eastern coast of the United States. But before we start, I want to say that actually what is happening, it requires again the whispering on my part, and this is the fate of anybody who tries to do serious military analytics, because in the end you become what? You become the political commentator. I never wanted to do this, but as following the Clausewitzian truism that the war is the continuation of the politics by other means, here I am. I am supposed to sit and talk about political issues because obviously any kind of the victory in the war is accomplished when the political objectives of the war are met. And the military, in this case, when we talk about real hostilities, real warfare, is the tool to achieve it. And military victory often is just the part of the larger issue. So I will start with what Russian officials warned everybody, starting at since yesterday, about the meeting of the technical groups in Riyadh. This is who they are. Technical groups of the American and Russian sides meeting in Riyadh, and they were discussing the Black Sea Initiative, which is essentially known as a grain initiative. And this is what has been stated by, for example, John Mearsheimer. And I have the very serious, contradictions, with him on many issues, especially issue of regarding Russia itself, what she is in terms of economic and military power and things of this nature. But he is absolutely correct. Russians need to give Trump some bone. And the reason that they have to give it to him, because obviously there are all kinds of nasty people and nasty orcs, if you wish, and interest groups within the White House and outside, and especially in Washington, D.C., especially neocons and especially warmongers. They have all kind of, desires to sabotage pretty much anything between United States and Russia, but Russians understand that. And so here we are. So Maria Zakharova, basically yesterday. So if you take a look attentively at the March 24, it's RIA News, and she talks about that there will be no breakthroughs to be expected at Riyadh meeting as multiple issues on table. These talks are conducted behind closed doors. Of course, one should not expect some kind of breakthroughs, but rather understand that the work is being conducted in several areas, which is absolutely true, and the work is being conducted on the several areas, and as many times basically has been confirmed and stated by Russians, everything is about removing the root causes of the conflict, which of course United States admitted. They initiated it, and even Bojo, the former Prime Minister of United Kingdom, he admitted that we sabotaged it pretty much, in 2022, and Ukraine was constantly in violation of any kind of the agreement. So here we are. So then Mr. Peskov talks about this, and it was again yesterday, and he clearly states what Russians were stating non-stop. Pardon me. Moscow and Washington still have to work out many different aspects of the agreement to resolve the conflict in Ukraine. Absolutely. Negotiations between the Russian and American delegations have already started in Riyadh. This was yesterday while they were still working. And again, keep in mind, they're technical groups. And so he continues. Peskov continues. Apparently, we are talking about the desire and readiness of the countries to move along the path of a peaceful settlement. There is indeed a common understanding here. And again, what many people do not understand, it's not about the deal. This is specifically stated about the desire. And of course, the American side also now desires to kind of move along those things, because there are so many issues which, hammer United States both geopolitically and purely economically. So, and basically everything was about this Black Sea initiative, which is really old. It's an old news, this Black Sea initiative, and you might remember that Russians, as none other than Mr. Lavrov, the Minister of the Foreign Affairs, today speaking to Russian language RT, he basically spoke about it very clearly, that no matter what we tried to do, even trying to meet everybody more than just halfway, it was all sabotaged. He spoke about this agreement which Mr. Erdogan was trying to sign between Russia, or help to sign between Russia and Ukraine in 2022. Everything was, wasted. Absolutely. Every single step Russia was making there to meet somebody halfway or even more than halfway, it was all sabotage. And this is what Mr. Lavrov talks about, and I'm pretty sure you can find it also on the YouTube. This one is from RooTube. But yes, he talks about that, everything has to be built about, around the verification. And the result of this technical groups, here we have the summary, today's summary, and as reflected by RIA News, and this is what Mr. Peskov, presidential spokesman, told the details of negotiations between the American and Russian delegation. And so here we are. And the main statements of the Kremlin are in the material of the RIA News, and here what they say. Russia and the United States have agreed to develop measures to ban attacks on energy facilities in Russia and Ukraine. Yes, we agreed to develop measures to implement the agreement of the presidents of the two countries on the ban on strikes of energy facilities in Russia and Ukraine for a period of 30 days, starting from March 18th, so with the possibility of extending. Well, we all know how it all goes, and Ukraine is in no rush to do anything about it. In fact, they continue to try to hit, Russian energy facilities. And Russians are in a good position to tell Mr. Trump and his representatives that, you see, you cannot trust those people, and these are your SOBs. Albeit at this stage, I will explain why we have to be very cautious, tread very cautiously when talking about that this is now American SOB. So, and then, of course, they agreed to ensure the implementation of the Black Sea Initiative. It implies ensuring the safety of navigation and preventing the use of commercial ships for military purposes. This is what Mr. Lavrov spoke about today, and this is all about the inspection mechanism. What will be the inspection mechanism? Pretty much the same, along the same line with the Black Sea Fleet, which, of course, in accordance to all those, herpes known as the, Western journalist, was sunk, but evidently still has plenty of ships to ensure any kind of required inspections, including, of course, the ships of the Russian Coast Guard. So, and then look at this. This is what really matters, and the United States will help restore access for Russian exports of agricultural products and fertilizers to the world market. After, reaction of the market, global market of the fertilizers was immediate. Those shares and everything just went up immediately. It also, United States will help reduce the cost of shipping, insurance, and expand access to ports and payment systems for such transactions. In other words, United States, lifts, let's not rush, let's not get ahead of ourselves, but United States is about to lift the sanctions on Russian agricultural products. And we know that low quality and dumping of the Ukrainian grain. Remember, I showed you how Poles dealt with it. Essentially screwed up the grain market, and they made a lot of farmers in Europe really unhappy. The agreement on the Black Sea Initiative will come into force after the lifting of the sanctions against Russian producers and exporters, including fish products and fertilizers. After the lifting of restrictions on the work of insurance company with food cargoes, lifting sanctions against the Russian Agricultural Bank. And it means that lifting restrictions on servicing Russian flagged vessels, basically plugging in the Russian Agricultural Bank into the SWIFT. Not that Russians really need it, but what is needed is for the European and other nations which depend on Russian agricultural exports to make payments to Russian Agricultural Bank. You know, Russians do not provide charity anymore to anybody. It is all about give you the product, you pay for it. And so this is a very important step, and obviously what can I say? Many people will say, oh gosh, Trump surrenders things. No, it's just the way it is. As I'm on record many times, and you can go if those who want to understand what I'm talking about, a week, no, not a week, I believe it was on Friday, I think, me and the chief editor of the RIA News, Irina Alksnis, we had the discussion on the Politmera, and we were discussing actually the issue. It is in Russian that Moscow understands the United States. I mean, probably even better than the United States understands itself. And the issue, which actually Mr. Mearsheimer stated that, Russians needed to give some bone to Trump, he said, throw the bone. I mean, it's giving, is to make him give him a cover to continue to improve some relations, and obviously there is no secret. It was stated by Russian officials that actually still those negotiations in Riyadh, they are very difficult, but they are technical. They are technical, for example, in this particular case, about the Black Sea grain deal, and that's a good sign. And once those guarantee measures are in place, not some kind of words or some kind of agreements, no. We're talking about very strict protocols of how the inspections will be ensured, and then, yeah, sure, things will go along just fine, and there obviously everything, all kinds of sanctions will be lifted from Russian grain producers and fisheries. So there you go. That's positive, not positive. And Russians need to say that, oh yeah, Mr. Trump, you're good. You got this thing going. So for Trump to have some kind of screen and weaponry against all kinds of the nasty people, which essentially infest Washington D.C. So that's how it works. And then we have obviously the situation with. Well, as already stated, many people still think that Zelensky is United States SOB. In a sense, he is. In a sense, he is. He continues to be that. But how much real control now United States tries or actually, exercises over him, that's the issue for the debate. And the reason it is for the debate, because we have to recognize the globalist mafia, essentially, or you can call it globalist organized crime group from the World Economic Forum, bunch of the nincompoops, those cowards, but they have at least, some kind of powers, and especially it is all now in Europe. The main center of globalism is now officially in Europe, and we have, by the way, globalist newspaper. Of course, French, those chihuahuas, they still think that they matter, but even Russian used to call the globalism mondialism, from the French word mondial, and Le Monde, this French globalist, rag, with all kinds of war criminals and jerks, sitting there, they begin to report today, at the Paris summit, Vladimir Zelensky wants to know who is ready to participate in a peace contingent in Ukraine. This This is what they say today. The summit on Ukraine scheduled for Thursday in Paris will aim to determine who is ready to put in place security guarantees with regard to sending a military contingent to Ukrainian territory in the event of a truce with Russia, President Vladimir Zelensky said at the press conference on Tuesday. Well, yeah, Macron can try to organize whatever the summit he can, but it's all a waste of time because, as I already stated, nobody cares what Chuvavas in Paris think. And Mr. Zelensky can make all kinds of claims, along all kinds of lines, but the issue of truce is not being discussed between Russia and United States. As I already stated a number of times, and I don't know how many times it has to be repeated, that any kind of ceasefire or truce comes only after the root causes of the Ukrainian conflict have been addressed. Simple as that. But yes, Mr. Zelensky now is London's and Paris SOB. And he is playing, obviously, on the team of the Globalist. And now, look at this. He also, says that for Vladimir Zelensky, Steve Witkov's statements are in line with Kremlin. The recent remarks by U.S. envoy Steve Witkov about the territories that Russia claims to annex coincide strongly with the Kremlin's messages, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said at the press conference on Tuesday. So there you go. And these cretins from Paris and from London and from, Berlin, they will continue to promote this point of view, living in the alternative reality until they either admit and their, pretty much cocked population removes all those cretins from power. I doubt it, but what do I know? Or until they will decide to commit suicide by Russia, and they will cease to exist as nations, which probably will be the best outcome for everybody, because basically what they represent today, Europe, is the aggressive globalist and insane cultural, economic, and what have you ideas, which obviously are not applicable to any normal people who want to live in peace and have prosperity and chance in life. But this is who they are. This is what France is. This is what United Kingdom is. This is what Germany is. And no matter how you go around, there is nobody, zilch, read my lips, none of anybody of the qualities which can become the leader of the nation, of those nations, because though that field was completely, wiped out by what I'm stating ad nauseam. The machine for the producing of the statesmen, not politicians, is broken. It has been broken for a long time now in the combined West, and it produces the credentialed cretins who know only how to BS people and stay elected or re-elect themselves. If they need to, and I'm not going to go there, but essentially Europe has long time ago become the Epstein Island, and that's who they are. And those people who do not understand that, I'm sorry guys, you elected Macron, you elected Hollande, you elected all kinds of the globalist leaders, and so there's no discussion about this. It's been said enough times to basically create the impression, at least for a while. Some people may be joining this channel and they are new people, and they may need sometimes, reminder, so to speak, or introduction for that matter, into their matters of facts, but, it is what it is. Now, and here comes this European thingy. And this is what I constantly state. And you know what? Cannot get any more authoritative and heavy than Mr. Lavrov yesterday. Nazis in Ukraine nurtured by Europeans. This is what Mr. Lavrov stated. The West is deliberately overlooking Kyiv's transgressions and using Ukraine as a tool against Russia. The foreign minister has claimed, he is correct. On Monday, the senior diplomat expressed concern over the demons of neo-Nazism, Russophobia, and other hateful ideologies spreading across multiple EU nations. Member states are deliberately overlooking Kyiv's misconduct, even as it persecutes ethnic Russians and violates human rights, he stressed. Ukraine, that's different. Those Nazis have been nurtured for the latest attempt to unite all of Europe under racist Nazi banners for a war against the Russian Federation, Mr. Lavrov stated. Isn't it what I'm stating for the last 10 plus years? I mean, that's the understanding between anybody who is a serious scholar in military, diplomacy, international relations, and intelligence, and who understands what is going on. As I already stated, doesn't matter in what dress you dress, so to speak, on what clothes you dress all those Nazi ideology. It is all about totalitarian control, and it doesn't matter how it's called. Is it German National Socialism, or is it, liberal fascism, which we evidence today? It all ends inevitably in 1984, Orwellian dystopia. And this is what is happening with Europeans. And let me tell you, they're good at it. Many people still, if you don't remember, I will tell you one thing and remind it non-stop. It was this continent, Europe, which produced two world wars, the Second World War II being unprecedented in killing 70 million people and producing the industrial atrocity on the industrial scale. And if anybody time and time again thinks that, oh, it was German National Socialism, how about Finns, who helped to kill 1.5 million civilians in Leningrad? How about Italians? How about Romanians? How about French SS division? How about blue divisions from Spain? Strange, isn't it? This is all Europe. There, well, if Mr. Tolstoy wrote in War and Peace that forces of the dozen languages invaded Russia, well, the same happened in the World War II. And on the Eastern Front, it was the Europe, all of it. And it was, well, Slovak divisions were there, and units are rather Hungarians, armies. So, and when you look at this, like, guys, do you have any historical memory? No, most Europeans don't. I mean, some do, and there are many of those Europeans are actually, as I constantly want to stress, and like last time with the Canadian Parliament giving the standing ovation to this Waffen-SS division veteran. So obviously, as you might expect, many decent, good Canadians come into the basically discussion boards and comments and say, I'm sorry for guys, it's not your fault. I know there are still some decent people in Canada, there are decent people in Europe, and this doesn't mean that I do take the broad brush, but I do generalize, and we'll have to look at the numbers. I'm a mathematical man. Being the military professional, you go with mathematics, guys. That's the only way. And you look at the numbers, and numbers speak volume. Now, when we spoke about this, and we look attentively at that, Russians already operating in the Sumy region, and as you can see yourself, special military operation continues non-stop, and Russians operate not only in Sumy region. There are all kinds of reports of Russians operating even on the right bank of Dnieper, but in Sumy region, Russians are now in a formation size, real, not groups, but the type of the battalion and even regimental size formations. And as you can see yourself, it pretty much stays almost, the same each day. More than 1,500 of Ukrainian soldiers is killed. So 18 and 24 years olds are now drafted in the armed forces of Ukraine, as they say, primarily for the border guards. Oh, sure, and territorial defense. Yes, of course. As you can see yourself, they throw at Russia whatever they can. 227 UAVs. They try to hit Russian energy sector. Okay. Well, Russians shoot, overwhelming majority of those shoot down. And so when you take a look at this and you just see for yourself what they do, like here it is. This is Sumy, the city of Sumy. Well, Russians have a pretty darn good ISI, and well, this is what NATO does. They hide their ammunition depots within their apartment blocks or civilian objects or subjects, if you wish. And here it is. Russians know what it is. You can see yourself by the detonation that it was the ammunition depot in the city of Sumy. But now I want to address something which many people probably expect from me, and they talk about them. What about F-47? And like, what about it? Yeah, it's some rendering of the image, and when it will fly, nobody knows. And the same goes for pretty much any kind of the announcements which come today from the combined West about, oh yeah, we're going to develop this or we're going to develop that. Remember 2020? Remember all those super pooper missiles, hypersonic missiles by Mr. Trump? No, none exists. And that's probably going to be continuing with the F-47 until it's going to be rolled out in whatever the years as the primarily technology demonstrator. And until it becomes the combat aviation, full combat aviation, has the first line service. Who knows when it's going to happen. So Russians also work on the real sixth generation, and real sixth generation is not kind of the repetition of the same old thing that, oh yeah, it's going to have the dedicated wings, side wings, all kinds of drones controlled. Su-57, Su-35 control those. So, I mean, what's new? They're more efficient engines? Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Americans make excellent engines. Make no mistake, super engines. So, will they be able to improve on it? Oh, absolutely. But the sixth generation, you have to keep in mind, it has to operate already in the near space. And that's what we have to wait and see what is going to happen. But I want to remind you, this is the trend. The same trend as this with long-range hypersonic weapon, which, of course, even the Pentagon itself and auditors in Pentagon said it's not ready. Why would they want to deploy it, as they say, in June when it is not ready? But, well, what can I say? However, let me remind you something about modern warfare. And I made a video on that. And remember this thinking? Well, first, when I spoke about this thing, which was, of course, the U.S. Army extended range cannon artillery, when you look at this prototype, you can see immediately it's cannot be used on the battlefield properly. When you look at this immense bore, and what can I say? So, and it is now being cancelled. It scraps. And didn't I tell you that this thing cannot be used in real combat? The U.S. Army is changing its approach to acquiring a long-range artillery capability and scrapping its 58 caliber extended range cannon artillery prototyping effort, according to the service acquisition chief. We concluded that prototyping activity last fall. Doug Bush told reporters at the March 8 briefing on the fiscal 2025 budget request. Unfortunately, it was not successful enough to go straight into production. I mean, how you would even, transport it? How would you use it in the real combat environment? It's just complete mystery to me. But here we have this thing. So the Army was able to conduct a variety of successful tests with ERCA prototypes, including hitting a target on the nose 70 kilometers away at Yuma Proving Ground. Well, yeah, for 70 kilometers, it's what Russians use now in Koaliция every day, essentially on the combat, in the special military operation. The problem with the cannon were mostly related to the length of the gun tube and its ability to withstand a large number of projectiles without excessive wear to the gun tube. We know that practically all of the NATO military, artillery, doesn't fare that well with the wear and tear of the what is called liner of the bore. And yeah, it is not competitive with, for example, Russian artillery, which, of course, speaking about 70 kilometers, let me remind you again. Here is the direct comparison by actually, Western sources about the best, as Germans claim, Panzer, Haubitze 2000 and to S-35 Koalicja SV. As you can see yourself, well, granted, Panzer Haubitze was earlier, 1998, but if you take a look at the ranges, well, there you go. Russians shoot at 70 kilometers, and that's what they do in a special military operation. And as you can see yourself, on the photograph, Koalicja has a normal, working length of the tube, and so, or the barrel, if you wish. And it's the best by far, the mobile artillery system in the world. Even Army recognition puts it at the number one. So as you can see yourself, self-propelled, artillery, 2 S-35 Kalitsa. And yes, 70 kilometers. Russians use it constantly. And this is the basically type of the pattern research, or pattern how to say, finding, if you wish, when you talk about all those weapon systems of oh yeah, they're so cool. Wait until the system gets into their serial production and it performs in the real war. Well, as with very many other things which were produced by the American and European military-industrial complex, you know what, the booklets, or marketing booklets, if you wish, advertising booklets from the shows and a real performance in the real combat conditions do not match most of the time with the those claims. And this is what was happening with the all those weapons, and including this ridiculous idea of the golden dome, which Mr. Trump promotes, and he says there will be no money spared to. Okay, sure. The problem, of course, when I say that United States lost the arms race, I mean it. This is not a figure of speech or hyperbole, and we need to understand this. That is why I always, for many years, take this with not just grain of salt, a pound of salt, and I understand that until you perform, all your claims are just that, claims. So this is what I wanted to tell you today, guys, about whatever is happening in the world. And as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And those who can afford, please support me on the Patreon or buy me a coffee too. And have a nice rest of the week. And I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.